The Hangar Z podcast welcomes John Nielson, retired California Highway Patrol pilot and the CEO and founder of Air Max Patrol.
Mitigation of risk in a pursuit for air support, that's the number one justification why agencies that I talk to, when I talk to chiefs of police and sheriff, they want to mitigate that risk to their guys. And you think about what we do in police work, that's the biggest danger statistically of something going south. When you're anything that we do fast, running fast, driving fast, there's a chance of something going bad. And I've seen a lot of things not end well in all the pursuits that I've had. So if you can get on top of that and calm it down and then mitigate all the risk and follow it to a conclusion and then bring everybody in on a containment and slow the action down, slow the tempo, let the adrenaline settle. That's what air support shines at.
Yeah. I love that. If it's running fast or driving fast. Wow, that's
where
really cool.
That's right. It's absolutely true. Welcome back to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. Today's episode features a true pioneer in airborne law enforcement, retired California Highway Patrol pilot John Nielsen. With more than 11,000 hours as pilot in command and another 3,400 hours as a TFO, John's career is a masterclass in dedication, innovation, and mission-driven flying. We start at the beginning of his journey on the ground, patrolling out of the Malibu Station along one of the most dangerous stretches of road in California, the Pacific Coast Highway. From there, John takes us through his transition into the air support unit, first as a tactical flight officer, and eventually as a fixed-wing pilot. But what truly sets this conversation apart is John's relentless 15-year effort to bring FLIR technology into CHP's fixed-wing program. That vision ultimately became reality with the integration of the MX-15 into a Cessna 206, and the results in the very first year were nothing short of remarkable. John also shares the story of his final flight before retirement, a mission that perfectly captures the impact of that technology, ending with a successful FLIR-assisted find. Now, he's the CEO and founder of Air Max Patrol. John continues to shape the future of airborne law enforcement by delivering cost-effective and proven solutions for air support units across the country. We also dive into the capabilities of the Diamond DA-62 and why it may be one of the best-kept secrets for law enforcement aviation. This is a conversation about persistence, innovation, and leaving a legacy that continues to save lives. Settle in. This is an episode you will not want to miss. Thank you to our sponsors, Traca Systems, Metro Aviation, and Robinson Helicopter.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. I'm your host, Jack Shanley. With me today is the creator of the Hangar Z podcast, John Gray. John, how's it going?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. Fresh back from Verticon. We had a heck of a week. Very busy.
Yep.
But a lot accomplished. There's some good content coming. Some really cool conversations, huh?
Yeah, the conversations there are always amazing. Going to Verticon is a bit humbling. You know, you walk around, you see how huge that show floor is. And, you know, we try and walk around and say hi to people, our friends and our supporters and all that stuff. And you get about 30 feet away from the booth and kind of orbit the booth in that 30-foot radius. But it's really fun, you know.
It is. We had a good time. And like I said, the content was amazing. Coldstream Helicopters jumps out at me, the emergency situation they had. And they, Brian, the two Brians, that'll be coming up soon. Pasadena PD coming up soon. And of course, Tony Weber and Dave Callan. So that was a good conversation too. We got some good stuff. So happy about that. We're recovering from that week and we're back at it. And we're going to have today's podcast is something that you've talked to John about before I was around in this.
Yeah.
And then when the two of us got together and we're doing the Hangar Z, we've talked to John about it. And last year at ABSCON in the lobby bar in Phoenix, we said, that's it. We're doing this, John. And John's been wanting to do it. And so we got him. So our guest today is the CEO and founder of Air Max Patrol Tactical Aircraft and retired CHP pilot and TFO, John Nielsen. John, welcome to the Hangar Z, finally.
Long overdue. I've been a big fan since the episode 1, John, and we've talked about this for years. I'm great to be on with you guys.
It's funny how time gets away from us, right?
It does, yeah.
We start talking about coming on and different ideas, and then all of a sudden it's 4 years later or 5 years later. It's wild.
Yeah,
it's really cool that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, this is great. Both known John for years. He's got an incredible reputation in the law enforcement aviation world, which everybody's going to learn about here shortly. I mean, John, you've got 15,000 plus hours in law enforcement aircraft as a TFO and as a pilot, mostly as a pilot, but like 3,000 or 4,000 as a TFO.
Only 14, Jack, not 15.
Oh, only 14. Oh, sorry.
I want to pad it by 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's thousands more than most. So you have a lot of experience, John, and you've been there, done that. But before we get to your background and walk through your career in both with the CHP and with your after retirement with the things that you've been doing, I think it's important to start back with something that's a big part of your story and your legacy, in my opinion. And I think you agree. I know John agrees. You changed the CHP fixed wing program. And when I say you, I know this was a team effort and you're not going to take full credit. And I understand that, but you spearheaded something that really changed the dynamic and the culture in how CHP fixed wing operations did business. And I don't think I'm overstating that at all. And it was a 15-year battle. I mean, 15 years. Most would have quit after a year and said, they're not going to do it. You did not do that. So walk us through what I'm talking about here, John. I mean, tell our audience what that was and how you did that and why it was so important to fight for 15 years.
Yeah. And like you said, it was a team effort. It would have never happened without the management at the time and the group of guys around me that had the same vision and the passion for wanting to evoke change. And change is uncomfortable, especially for government agencies. It does take a long time sometimes to change direction of a big ship like that. But for me, it started when I first got into air operations. At the time, you had to have 1,000 hours commercial instrument rating in a tail while we flew 185s and MALs at the time. And so I thought it was a 10-year process. I was a 400-hour pilot with the ratings, but as a rental weekend warrior, it would have taken me 10 years to build 600 more hours just to be at the point to where I could at least test for it. And then the list back in the day, the CHP air program back then had about 6 airplanes and I think 7 helicopters. This is like in 1984 when I first caught on. When I was a cadet in the academy, I met the chief pilot for the fixed wing, great guy, John Alexander. He invited me to have lunch with him, and I said, "Hey, I'm a private pilot and working on my instrument commercial. I'd love to fly for the department someday." And he said, "John, yeah, that's great. I'd love to stay in touch with you, but you'll probably never fly for this." Wow. And he just pulled out a list of guys that were ex-military. This guy flew for the Navy. This guy flew C-130s and the air. Just a list of guys waiting for a slot to open up that had tons of experience. And he said, by the time we'd ever get to somebody, that has the bare minimums, it's you just have to wait for a slot. And I'm not discouraging you, but I'm saying it's a long shot.
He said, "I'm not discouraging you," as he was discouraging you.
Yeah. So I honestly thought my way into air ops was going to be as a TFO, and then hopefully be in a position to be mentored and groomed in an air unit, because that's another path for getting a pilot slot. So started in Malibu, California, out of the academy. Worked there for 4 years, and 23 years old, they gave me a Mustang, and I had 30 miles of Pacific Coast Highway.
Man,
So
you hit the lottery there.
I did. Well, it's yes and no. But so Malibu at the time, if you think of Pacific Coast Highway as a freeway through a residential area,
It is.
so it was the highest fatal stretch of highway in California. So
Yep.
big transition. I had never had any experience with death or trauma before. I mean, I was a college student into the CHP Academy, worked a couple dozen fatals my first year, just so you're kind of thrown into, the fire pan there, working that area. So I was a chippy that wasn't working a freeway. It's the Santa Monica Mountain Range and Pacific Coast Highway. So with all the head-ons and problems and auto pet, just everything in that, got a ton of experience in 4 years. I'm working there.
We talk about the benefits of working at a busy division, as a new officer all the time.
Yeah.
That's proof of that conversation, what you're talking about. How did that kind of set your career up beyond that?
Yeah. If you think about it, if you work in freeways, all the energy momentum is moving the same direction. So the type of impacts you have working a freeway are not like you would have working a city or canyon roads or 2-lane highways and stuff like that. So I worked more fatals in that first year than I ever did for working the road 2 years in another area.
And for those that don't know, I mean, the Pacific Coast Highway is dangerous enough, like you said, but then you had multiple canyon highways going from the beach over the mountains that are treacherous, 2 lanes, tight, steep cliffs. And you were up there a lot as well.
Yeah, so you had that whole all the problems with all those canyon roads, Topanga Canyon, Canaan, Latigo, all the ones that fed into the valley. And highly traveled too, because all those folks are coming over to Zuma Beach to hang out in Malibu.
Yeah, those are busy, very busy. So once you decided, and we'll walk through this and get to the 1990, that key year where something started to change. But you decided to go aviation, and where did you go first with your aviation time with CHP?
I knew that. So at this time, and we're going way back, John, if you remember the national fuel crisis that we had in the early 80s. So the whole nation went to the 55 maximum speed limit. There was a big federal grant that the state of California CHP got to enforce that 55 mile an hour, in the state. And that within a couple years period, doubled the size of our fixed wing fleet overnight. Wow. So that big list of all those guys that were waiting for slots, they got sucked up. And then I was getting a call from, hey, are you still interested in doing this? And they cut the flight hours because they went through that list of very high time qualified guys. Now they had to get to guys like me that didn't have the 1,000 hours. So they cut the testing at, I think you had to have 350 hours to test and 500 hours to actually until you could be, a department pilot. So that now I was instantly qualified. So things changed overnight for me. I transferred out of Malibu to Contra Costa County in the Bay Area because I had to be in that division where I knew the next airplane was being stationed. I'd have a better chance if I worked in that division getting into that air unit.
Interesting. That was a good move then.
So it was that, and I didn't initially get hired as a TFO in the first 3 that they did, but just a few months later, somebody had left and a slot opened up, and then they brought me in. So started out as a TFO, took the state test that they did that about every 2 years that you would go up and basically did an instrument commercial flight check with the chief pilot. It was an interview process with a team from headquarters, and then your flight test, and then you got put on a list that the air units, the 7 air bases in the state could hire off of. And as long as you're on that list, you'd be eligible for them to interview. So I was on the list, got hired as a TFO on the airplane. And this was about the time that CHP was going to advanced life support. So all those TFOs and the helicopters were all going to school for a year, going to medic school.
Yeah.
So I got to cross, the aisle a lot, being a TFO in the helicopter on overtime days, and or just for filling slots up. And had a young family. The overtime was great, so I never passed on an opportunity. But I was, I loved that role. And honestly, Jack, back in the day, it was how they treated TFOs. I didn't know anything, had no training, nothing. I was a baggage with a badge, and I didn't felt confident. So I really dug in, just trying to learn the job from experienced guys and from reading. I was the guy that bought your book. But just trying to learn from other people. And so I just was a guy that paid a lot of attention because I wanted to do better. I just always wanted to find the next best way to, staple 2 pieces of paper to get there. That kind of,
Wow. And so where were you working initially as in your TFO job?
It was a Golden Gate division. So based in Napa, covered. So each of the divisions in California, there's 7 of them. Each division covers a chunk of the state. Golden Gate was based in Napa. We covered the 9 Bay Area counties.
Yeah. It's a big area.
Region. Yeah.
A huge area of responsibility and a very busy area.
Yeah. Very populated, big departments, lots of people.
Yeah.
Lloyd Horgan was just up there, I think it was last year, and did some beautiful work with that division. The photography and videography he got out of that shoot and the stuff that came out of that is beautiful. What a cool place to operate.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of neat that, back in the day before they had all these air ambulances around that industry has really grown up, but there was none of that back then. One of the reasons that we flew 185s was because we could land off airport. That was what they call a STOL aircraft, kind of a bush plane. It can get in and out of very tight spots. And there were times that we would land and maybe give first aid until, somebody else with a higher level of care could get there. It was rare, but we trained for that and we did that occasionally.
Wow.
Everybody in CHP at the time had to be EMTs. So we were, even the pilots. So we all went to EMT school, carried just a basic kit bag in the back of the aircraft, along with the milk carton with all the Thomas guides.
Yep. How many were there? Do you remember how many you had in there?
For every county. So we had nine of them.
Now, what do you need a milk carton?
So in Valley Division, we had 13 because we had 13 counties in that division.
Jeez.
So yeah,
that's amazing.
That's how
One's
you
hard
navigate
enough, Holy mackerel!
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about technology. It creates the illusion that you're really smart.
Yeah, oh yeah, it does. It does. You had to be ready for any agency in that 9 counties you could be supporting. Is that accurate?
It was.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I dealt with and I focused on is the communications back then. So the receiver transmitters were these big boxes that were in the tail of the aircraft.
Yeah.
And then we had this little thumb drive way to program. You'd have to the pinwheel, line everything up to program a frequency in. And that was kind of like at below knee level, below the power quadrants so it was really difficult to do and see and line everything. So we would only have about 10 frequencies that unit could hold in a, turning A, B, C, D, E, all the way across. But so that was the big problem. We had a black book, all the frequencies. If we were going to someone, we'd have to program their frequency in, test it, and then we could talk to people. And that took 3 or 4 minutes to do every time.
That's amazing. Technology. I mean, John and I were just talking about this the other day because we went up with Shotover in back in Atlanta for a demo for their new M2, and
crazy.
John had done it before. That was my first time seeing the M2, and it was amazing. And when we got done, we said, "It's just cheating. It's just cheating because it's so user friendly. I mean, everything." And then you add to it the radio packages that exist now compared to what what we used, and it's just night and day. It doesn't even compare. Yeah. And when you talk about things like you've just been talking about, there are young air crews out there that are going, what the heck are they talking about? I mean, but that's how crude it was. I mean, 9 map books you had to have those map books.
Yeah.
And you better know how to use them. You just didn't punch an address in. No, the address, you wrote it on your knee on your knee board and then looked it up and then say, hey partner, head that way, you know?
Yeah. Find a point of interest and then figure out a bearing to go from there, and with a
Unbelievable.
stopwatch and a speed calculations. Yeah.
Just crazy. Just crazy.
Thanks to our sponsor, Traca Systems. With over 25 years delivering groundbreaking searchlights, stabilized EOIR cameras, mission mapping, and downlinking solutions, Traca products improve situational clarity and coordination with ground crews, increasing mission safety and effectiveness. Visit tracasystems.com. See clearly, act decisively.
The 15-year battle really wasn't about, it kind of focused on technology. It wasn't that because we kind of gave up. So in 1990, the first thing I did is we did a study to upgrade that little radio head into a Wolfsburg where we could program like 300 frequencies in and search phonetically. Yeah. So we were the first airplane in my division to do that. We had some leftover money in our budget from being frugal, and the chief at the time, I did a presentation and said this upgrade would change it, at least for us to help our allies out and be able to talk to them. So that was a big change, and that made a big difference.
And that wasn't a really difficult battle, I take it.
No, that was it wasn't very expensive. It was, pull a unit out, put something else in.
Yeah. Not like the battle we're about to talk about, which was
the camera systems. Yeah. Well, and honestly, I did. And so in 1990, I think you and I have talked about this before. They didn't pay for me, my expenses. I basically got in my car. I visited some of my local agencies, Oakland PD and San Jose PD at the time were very helpful. And what we did is we went on to simulate flying a profile with an airplane in altitudes. We would go up to like 15 to 2,000 feet over and see how the camera did. And this is back in the day when the FLIR was the biggest probably at the time back then. And those cameras back then weren't very stabilized. You really kind of had to be low and slow to get a good image to work off of.
Right.
And so that wasn't an airplane profile. So we pretty much, after doing all the research and what was available, it would have to be a smaller camera to fit on a Cessna 185 because we were already tail heavy with all the equipment and radios and stuff we had back there. And so it would have to be a small light camera to even think about it. And they just wouldn't have worked well at that speed and profile and altitude back in the day. So I decided that the technology is just not there right now to think about putting a camera on an airplane and having positive results. So,
but that idea stuck with you. I mean, where you thought about it, you presented it, you realized right now not quite feasible, but you did not stop that. You continued to research and continued to look at equipment for years and convince the powers that be that this can be done and it should be done and we could be effective. Is that the way it kind of went?
Yeah, you do. I mean, for a big agency, you have meetings, you do a presentation either to your headquarters people or your command staff for your particular division. And back in the time, it was really, hey, our helicopters pretty much take care of this mission. That's why we equip them, and they're better suited for it. At the time, the technology, you pretty much had to be in that helicopter profile, being, slowing down, low, tight orbits to get a workable picture to work with. And
right.
So all that started changing as these, the technology changed dramatically, and also the aircraft changed. So in 2000, we updated our entire fleet, helicopters and airplanes. So we had kind of a mixed fleet depending on, we had some twin engine Bocals in the high country and based in Fresno and Auburn that covered, had the performance to do that. They were expensive to fly, but they needed that performance to get up into that high country to do those type of rescues up there. And, but then the B3 came along.
Yeah.
Changed everything.
Changed everything overnight. So we were able to standardize our fleet in 2000. So everything went to the B3 helicopter for the rotor ring side. And then we went to the Cessna Turbo 206, which gave us a bigger platform with a bigger weight and balance, bigger cabin, a lot more possibilities to hang stuff off of that.
Right.
So that in 2000 is when I kind of picked it up again. Is okay. Now let's see what we could hang off this big boy.
But you were 10 years into that idea and fight, and now you realize, okay, we're getting someplace. That change, that was the biggest change, I take it, of everything, was that airframe change.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, because now we had a more capable aircraft with more room. Integration's very complex. You start cutting holes and hanging things off aircraft.
Yeah.
There was none of that going on with fixed wing back then too. So the experience and the level of STCs that are out there now for this airframe, there's plenty of them. There wasn't in the day.
Yeah.
So it was even more expensive and more difficult to figure out how are we going to hang this stuff, and what's the performance issues that we're going to have once we do it. And
was there any unit out there that you had contact with that had done it with a fixed wing already?
Oh yeah,
in some form, but not to the level that you wanted to do it.
Yeah, so the DEA guys, FBI, they were ahead of everybody, so they'd been doing this stuff, but they were flying bigger aircraft too. Yeah. So I think DEA. I went and visited somebody. They had it on a Merlin, a King Air size aircraft,
right?
Fully outfitted. So there was some other folks that did, but not at the scale that I wanted to get the very highest level of ISR technology on a platform that we could afford to get it out there a lot,
right,
and work. And that's kind of what I learned from my 4 days in 1990 that I spent with LAPD. That unique type of situation. You guys were set up better than anybody in the world for doing a ground response if you had to. I mean, if you had to cut back hours, you could literally walk out your door. You're on the rooftop in the center of your city. That's your airport, and up and going in a few minutes. 90% of, probably even higher, 90% of air units are based at their local airport. They tend to be on the outskirts of town, so there's a time delay to having to respond from the hangar, fly to where most of the calls are to get there. And you didn't have that. And I remember the guys emphasizing that, listen, if we didn't focus on real-time intelligence and overlapping shifts and how we operate, our stats would drop off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Because it's really about getting that camera on, seeing that, as quickly as possible.
Right.
And I never forgot that. And your TFOs were so well trained compared to, I've been a TFO for a long time, and I realized I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So I realized we really had to pick up our game and how we train, how the time we invest. I still to this day, that's the weak link in our industry, is agencies will go spend a whole bunch of money in training the pilots but they don't focus on that TFO, and that guy's got to be a good, solid cop. That's a good, he's got to be a good hunter.
Yeah.
With the knowledge and how to work everything. So,
and that's been true forever. I mean, even the agencies that were doing a pretty good job at training, and that includes LA, they were doing a pretty good job. But even in today's world, over the decades, it's amazing how consistent that point is being, where you spend millions of dollars on a piece of equipment, but how much do you spend on the training for that piece of equipment? Nothing,
right?
Or very little. And you just go, they'll figure it out. Yeah. Well, that's probably not the best thing. And we see it in today's world, in the drone world.
Yes.
That's what's happened. It's identical. And they're learning, they're figuring it out, but that's exactly what happened there. The agencies were spending big money on drones and not spending a dime on training them. They just said, well, they got their 107 thing. That was a great line from a podcast, that 107 thing. They got their part 107 and they're good to go. Well, that's not the biggest part of the job.
No.
The biggest part is talking, communicating, being a tactician, being a searcher, being a hunter, like you said, and knowing how to use that camera. So it's funny how things are, same mistakes get made over and over.
Well, it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a ton better over the last 15 years, believe me. And it's from guys with passion like you guys, sharing what you've learned along the way.
Yeah. That's a big part of why John created this. I mean, his original idea was exactly what you just mentioned, John.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
It goes back to the idea of the conference. You'd go and be inspired at Verticon or AppsCon or somewhere else. Like, it was really cool. And then a couple months later, you've kind of forgotten that conversation that inspired you. I'm like, it'd be cool to throughout the year to listen to people like you and be like, oh, that idea that John had is really good.
Yeah.
We need to integrate that into what we're doing. So yeah, to your point, that was one of the early ideas, and it's been fun to I guess pursue that idea.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I've been a big fan from episode 1, John. And I mean, you have a passion for this. You know, when your heart has gratitude, and we're all grateful that we got to do this unique, great job for as long as we did. You know, and the people and the changes, the impact that we made, and the great thing about gratitude, it kind of forces you to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And you have to have passion to do that. And I know that's why you started this podcast. And Jack, we're retired now. We're older guys, but we still have a passion about this. And
it's still there. Yeah, that's the big motivator. John and I talk about that all the time. And we get the responses we get, and the comments we get, the compliments, it really makes it worthwhile, because we realize, mission accomplished, John. You set that goal for informing people of, all these different agencies and how they do things. No agency knows everything. Not one. They're not even close.
Yeah.
But if you interview 20 agencies, think of the amount of information you get, and you can pick things. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, John, just like going to a conference, it's exactly the same, except that you're watching it or you're listening to it now, a conversation, you're learning something new and going, why didn't we think of that? That happens all the time.
And that's the beauty about this open dialogue. I mean, I'll just point out a show. I think it was Nashville. You were talking to Nathan.
Yes.
Sergeant there.
Yes.
And it just took a turn from talking about tactics and their operation to mentorship and leadership. And he was mentioning books, and this guy's super articulate. And so I'm writing this down. Well, I read those books, and I learned a lot being a business owner. That for me, just hearing that guy and the information I got out of that, and how it's affected me, and now how I do something just a little bit differently in how I approach stuff from an episode on Hangar Z.
That's cool. We talk about him in that conversation quite a bit.
We do.
I'll never forget that whiteboard that he had in front of his desk, and it had 8 things for being a good leader. And number 1 and number 8, called them the bookends, were taking care of your people. And I 100% agree that if you take care of your people, you'll be an effective leader. If that's what your focus is. Yeah. And so to your point, he was very articulate, very well spoken. He's done a fabulous job of bringing that air support unit from point A to point B, and point B is a point of productivity, and they're an essential part of their agency now, which is really
and look
cool.
at now, they got 2 brand new birds, and they're out killing it. And
they are.
Yeah,
they are. That was a really impactful conversation to John and I, because we didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Nathan, he's kind of he's a quieter guy. He's not this, but he is a really smart and effective leader. And so we didn't see that coming in that part of the conversation. When we were recording in his office, John and I looked at each other multiple times, and just went, "Wow! I mean, this is incredible." And we're thankful to Nathan to this day for that conversation. And John, I don't know how many times you have brought up those bookends, many times, because it was so simple, and it's right there in front of us on that whiteboard. And he referred to it multiple times. He said, "Well, that's why that means that." That was great. That's great to hear you, John, talk about, wow, I wrote down the books, because he must have given 3 or 4 books, that he used for leadership for his own well-being somewhere, and his military background affected that. But that just proves the point that that conversation, that's a couple of years ago, and John Nielsen remembers that conversation.
Oh, I do.
That's
I remember
really
a lot
cool.
of them. You remember when you guys sometimes do supervisors, I think of, that's a guy in my career where if I was a young guy, I wish I would have had a sergeant like that leading my area unit. And, Clay Lacey, same thing. He's big state, lots of issues that they're dealing with along the border and stuff like that. But you can hear that guy, and he's enticed to go out and teach for APSCON, and travel around, kind of like what you've probably inspired by you, Jess, back in the day. But these are guys who are doing stuff outside their state, making places safer outside of, the state of Texas. And I admire that. When I see folks that they're willing to go out and share what the great experiences they had, even with small agencies that maybe will never come across this kind of stuff. It makes us all do our job better.
Well, you did it too, John. You did it for ALEA and now APSA, in the fixed wing program. I mean, that was you were doing the exact same thing. You had a lot of experience and you were willing to take the time and effort to go someplace and travel and deal with all that nonsense to go and share. And there's no doubt that there are fixed wing programs around the world that were affected by things that you taught them and you said and pointed out and shared with them. So you're doing the same thing. I love it.
Yeah. It's because I'm grateful and I want it.
Obviously. Yeah. You are.
Yeah.
So now we're at 2000. We're 10 years into this battle, and that you said the airframe's changed and now things have changed. What were the next steps that led to the final outcome of your goal?
Well, the big change was, because these cameras were expensive. The big MX-15's $1 million camera now. But so it was I was, if you can find funding grants or something like that, then we'll talk about it. But my department at the time was not interested in funding that change or whatever. So I found a company that was Cineflex. They had a big twin engine turbine aircraft that they were doing demos. And at the time, this is in the early 2000s, the CHP, along with Caltrans, was building a dispatch center that they were going to regionalize. And that's kind of the trend right now, that instead of the dispatchers being at every local office, they're all brought in and they cover, kind of like air traffic control does now with the centers. It was moving towards that. So there was a modern building being built in Sacramento, and they were going to have these big screens up with, to look at congestion relief in the big metropolitan areas. And so I arranged to get a demo flight with that company, and we took up the head of Department of Transportation, Caltrans officials and stuff, and they got to play with the camera.
Yeah.
And this was just a daytime broadcast, long range camera that had great zoom and capability, kind of what Tom did with the M2. Took a really high level lens and then incorporated it with an IR camera. What these guys could see and zooming in and looking around in the Sacramento areas, we made laps around there. They were like, yeah, we want this. And we want that to be downlinked to our traffic management center. So our dispatchers and Caltrans coordinators can see all these problems real time. We'll buy it.
Wow.
So
that's a big win.
Yeah.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company. For over 50 years, Robinson has been a cornerstone in vertical lift, dedicated to making helicopter missions accessible, reliable, and safe. By maintaining a vertically integrated manufacturing base in the United States, Robinson delivers practical, high-performance tools for difficult missions. Whether it's the legendary R-22, where so many pilots began their journey, the versatile R-44 and R-66, or now the new 10-seat R-88, Robinson continues to set the standard. Now through Robinson Unmanned, the company is expanding into autonomous and remotely piloted aircraft for civil, commercial, and defense sectors. Robinson Helicopter Company, committed to efficiency, reliability, and supporting your mission, whatever it may be. Visit robinsonheli.com or robinsonunmanned.com to learn more. Climb higher.
So it wasn't just a grant just for one airplane. It was for 4 cameras in 4 major regions. So they wanted it in the Bay Area, they wanted it in LA, they wanted it in Sacramento, and I think in San Diego. So the money was there, and now it was now we started doing the research and what equipment we were going to do and how we were going to outfit it. And the wheels still took years, even though the money was sitting there. It still took a few years of research and studies, and this is the direction we're going to go. So they landed on the MX-15 camera. It was going to be the camera of choice. There was trying to find somebody to figure out how to sticking on the side of a Cessna 206.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they found that out. It took the plane was gone for almost a whole year, while because you have to engineer, and they were starting from scratch. And
was Cal Meeker a part of that, or was that
he wasn't? No.
Okay.
Now Cal's got a bunch of solutions for mounting cameras. So
Yeah.
I wished he would have been.
Yeah.
He could have solved a lot of
That would
issues.
have helped. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we were really the first to hang that class of camera. Most cameras on airplanes are of the 10-inch size. And it's for me, it's for a reason. I will not build a Cessna 206 with a large format camera hanging off the side of it. And it's just because of the performance loss and the structural issues it causes down the road that we found out with doing that. I like to build everything with it, keeping it inside the aircraft so you have no performance loss in takeoff and landings. So that Cessna 206 basically turned into a 172, that big 110-pound gimbal hanging off the left side of the
Wow.
the
That
plane.
big a difference.
Big, yeah, especially in climb out, climbing out. So we just had policies that we didn't take that airplane up into mountain strips. Anything with a density altitude above 5,000 feet, you just didn't. We wouldn't do that with the camera ship.
Right. Wow.
But,
so much to consider. It was almost like an experiment. It wasn't.
Well, it should have been an experimental aircraft, and so I did almost all the flight testing on that when the engineers would sit back there, and my concern is everything we do, and I don't even know how to turn an airplane to the right. Everything's left-hand orbit.
They turn to the right.
Yes. But so you're flying the camera for your TFO,
Sure.
but then some of the stall and spin, if you got into a spin with all that parasite drag dynamic on one side, it took a while for the plane to come out of it. And so my concern was a safety thing, that you get a young pilot at night and maybe a car turns underneath him and he really has to do a tight turn, tighter than he's normal. And you stall the airplane with the wing down with that camera hanging out there, that's going to delay it coming back out of it, even if he does everything right. So as a business owner, for a risk management, I just will not. There's companies that do, and that will put, I just won't do it. And it's just for a safety aspect.
I'm going to sound like a shot over salesman here. Going back to our demo flight, that was one of the cool things, being a 6-axis system.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The camera's not rolling over on itself when you fly over your target like we're used to. I think that alone, for what you're talking about, increases your safety threshold by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
So that was
the nadir issues they're pretty much eliminated now. All the cameras are companies have done that. Tom's a very smart guy. He was smart to develop his own camera, and he obviously got fantastic mapping ARS systems that it's dominant in the industry.
Yeah.
Now we see folks like Tracker, they're doing stuff with their own ARS systems built into the turret. And I like to see that kind of innovation, because it's going to force everybody to have to do it. And so
100%.
Prices come down, things get cheaper, technology gets better and sharper. It's good for everybody.
Yep, I agree.
Was the command staff of Highway Patrol, was that a battle, or was that, no, we want to do it? It makes sense what you're saying, John, but financing and all that, were they pretty much on board with it, or did you really have to sell it over and over and over?
Yeah, you're looking back, wisdom is a great thing. There's clarity. It comes from years later and wisdom's just about paying really close attention. And, change is difficult for a lot of folks. And so there was a duality in two sides of even the fixed wing house back then. We had a pretty good gig back for being a cop. We were Monday through Friday, daylight hour operation. The helicopter guys were they covered multiple shifts and 7 days a week. But, for being a dad and raising kids like that, I pretty much had banker hours.
Yeah.
That's not pretty common in law enforcement,
That's pretty good.
And moving forward and doing this was going to change a lot of stuff. It was obviously going to get us into flying 2 shifts a day, swing shift, maybe even graveyard shifts again. So there were people that are very opposed to, why are you rocking the boat? Why? And for me, it was like, listen, whether you're in business or you have to always be reinventing yourself and making yourself valuable. And the speed enforcement stuff was slowly starting to go away. I mean, that grant, and even now there was technology with LiDARs and stuff like that, or radars that was taking over that. If we didn't reinvent ourselves in the fixed wing side of the house, I honestly could have seen it selling aircraft or going back to a primary helicopter only mission.
Wow. So that's within your unit. I mean, that's other pilots and TFOs that are going, hey,
Yeah.
So you had to sell it to them first, and your command and the people that are controlling the purse strings. You had a multi-tiered battle here.
Yeah, and I mean, there were folks in even our leadership. There was those that were for it and those that were against it. Yeah. So we, even at the headquarters level, we had some cheerleaders and those that were absolute naysayers at the time. So,
what was the main naysay? I mean, what was the main criticism, saying you don't need this and this is why? Was there one thing that jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean, even today, we're airborne law enforcement is a helicopter centric community. And in the real world of things, if they cost the same to operate and everything to maintain and stuff, I would be all about for helicopters, because really it's a better platform, as far as the diversity. And God, if you have to land, put your hands on people, you can do that too. You're not going to do that in an airplane.
Right.
I'm going to, just so you know, John, I'm going to put that on a loop that you said that.
No, I mean, I'm an airplane guy that always wished I could have learned to fly helicopters.
Yeah,
I was fascinated.
John's going, maybe this wasn't a good idea to come on the Hangar Z podcast.
No, but I mean, if we take away the economics of it,
yes,
and do that. And unfortunately, Jack, not everybody has worked for a department like CHP and LAPD.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the studies that I did, that I teach in classes, if you take the top 10 agencies and you add up their flight time per year, it's 50% of the flight time in the United States. And
wow.
So when you think about that and goes, gosh, even like in 2007, when that big DOJ study was done, I think that's the last time a formal national study. And, CHP flew 33,000 hours that year, LAPD 19, LA County Sheriff 17, San Bernardino, San Diego, all these big agencies, mostly in California.
Right.
That was the bulk of the hours flown in the nation. And in teaching classes, and I talk and I ask, and the average law enforcement aviator is lucky to log more than 200 hours a year.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I found that to be true too. I felt guilty sometimes. I bet you did too, where you'd be talking to agencies at other parts of the country and they'd say, yeah, we're really getting to fly a lot right now. And they tell you, and you'd go, that's a lot. I mean, where it wasn't a lot at all. And but they were thrilled. They were thrilled they were getting that much because they had just increased their hours. We were very lucky. Very, very lucky that we get to fly so much and experience so much in a short period of time. And it just helped you sell your program some more because you had results, which we're going to get to here in a second, because your results that you got from this battle were incredible. Is there something else about that journey before we get to your first year results that you want to talk about?
Well, the first year, actually, all we did, it was the congestion relief program that Caltrans bought us, and our entire focus was just on the morning and afternoon commutes in my division. That's what we used the camera ship for. They had actually removed the IR camera from the MX-15, so we didn't even have night capability. And I think that was just a kind of, this is all we want you guys to focus on. This is it. And we didn't even know that. We didn't know that MX-15 built cameras without IR systems on it until after that first year. We made an inquiry. Somebody called the factory, and we were just trying to get pricing. How much would it cost us to install the IR system in this? And it's like, hey, we have it on the shelf here, guys. Your department wanted us to remove it. We can put it back in anytime.
You already paid for it. You bought it. It was sitting here collecting.
Well, they had to pay to put a dummy weight in there to make for all the balancing of the gearing and everything. It was It was a big cost to dummy that camera down year
That's
one. So,
crazy.
and maybe even some of that might have been culturally of not wanting to run with.
Yeah.
And I could see that. That was a big leap in technology and parking these big cameras over cities, and so.
Oh yeah.
So we year two, as soon as we did get the IR camera installed, and then we really focused on. We really upped the flight hours for our division. I mean, we used to average about 100 hours a month on our aircraft, on all helicopters and airplanes back in the era. That was what we were budgeted for to fly. So everybody got like 1,000 hours of budget time per airframe to do that. Well, we just shifted it to, we flew that 2006, that first year, and we did a formal study, kept very close stats of what we got involved with, and we flew that aircraft 1,800 hours.
Wow.
But we had 600 felony catches and 200 pursuits with one airplane in 1 year. And
wow, incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I think the airplane, the fixed wing side of things really demonstrates its capabilities is the amount of flight time that you're able to loiter. And like you said, the cost of operations alone, really impressive when you look at what you can get out of a patrol-based fixed-wing platform.
And I even did a study, working with a big department. They always want to, don't talk to us until you've done the officials. So every time that you hear a pursuit and you run out, and that's something that you can really mitigate risk if you can get on top of a pursuit for your guy. We all know that.
Yep.
And that's where you're going to run out to the aircraft and get it up, get there as quickly as possible. Well, what I came up with that study is 90% of pursuits only last about 3 or 4 minutes, especially if it's in the inner city. It's as soon as they lose sight of them for a second, that guy wants out of that car that can attach them to, that stolen car in their foot bail, and they're gone. It's either that or somebody runs out of talent and crashes. Good guys and bad guys. Mm-hmm. So the average pursuit is a very short window, and you're not going to get involved from a ground response. So. And same thing with crime in progress, major felony type crimes, burglaries, armed robberies, that kind of stuff. Those customers aren't waiting around, for the cops to get there. They're doing it, and they're getting away from that crime scene as quickly as possible. So the level of airborne intelligence is very high if you can get that camera on that crime scene within the first 60 seconds. And a lot of times even that's too late. The delay in dispatch and stuff like that we would find out. So intelligence that's what we're paying for, for these aircraft is airborne intelligence. And it's really high if you can act in real time.
And that kind of ties into something you talked about earlier, which I want to focus on. You talked about, one, the need to be airborne, to be over these incidents, to prove your worth as an aviation unit, and to prove your skills as a TFO is critical. You talked about some of the folks weren't necessarily excited about you pursuing the cameras because it might change how much work they're having to do, and it kind of illustrates
the shifts that they might have to work. And,
right, the idea of the flying club. We're seeing that disappear. I think it was Jeff Rakovich, one of my favorite sayings, talked about the pigeons. They don't want to fly until you throw a rock at them and you make them fly. Yeah. I think the idea of the flying club's disappearing. So I'm curious, based on your travels and Jack too, do you see that flying club mentality disappearing with the advent of all this technology and all these abilities that are kind of presenting themselves in today's world?
Jack, why don't you answer that first? And your travels.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there were some larger agencies with maybe smaller air units, but where they were known for that, for the flying club mentality, where it wasn't really being used as effectively and as efficiently as it could have been. And some of them didn't even have TFOs. I mean, they didn't. There's still agencies that don't. And it's bizarre to me because I wasn't raised on that. I mean, my experience was that TFO position was the most important position,
Absolutely.
And that the pilot had a lot of responsibility, but the TFO was the key because you're the one that's communicating, coordinating, doing the tactics, and having the impact on ground operations. But a pilot over that, a single pilot I will never name the agency unless I was waterboarded. Then I would tell. But I remember, and it was a friend. It was a friend of mine that was with a state agency back east, and he was over a pursuit as a single pilot multiple times. And I went, how do you even do that? And he goes, not very well. I mean, he admitted it. He was a really sensible guy. He was begging for TFOs, but they wouldn't do it. They would not do it. And so, yeah, that flying club mentality has disappeared a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And you see it too, John?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I do. Yeah. And I see obviously focusing on better training now, even having SOPs, and, they're running programs a lot more, professionally, that I think. And even, some of the pilots and the TFOs, a lot better training than I had available in my era. Yeah. And I used to fly a lot of solo pilot. If you didn't, your TFO was in court or something like that, you still went out and did the job.
But it's hard.
It is. Yeah,
it's hard enough. Both jobs are challenging. They have their independent challenges, and you doing it by yourself. Oh my gosh. I can speak to this, where I'd have a brand new TFO on his first month loan, first month in the helicopter, and they freeze on a major incident, where I'm watching a gun battle right now. And one that I'm thinking of, I talk about all the time with the TFO goes, they're shooting. I go, coordinate this, you got to work it. Didn't know what to do, froze up. And now I had to do both jobs. That was hard. Yeah. That was very hard. You got to fly this safely. You're low level in a helicopter doing left-hand tight orbits over a gun battle. And there's things that need to be said. And you're trying to watch torque and temperature and all these limitations. And at the same time, trying to keep these coppers from alive. And how do we get more coppers to them to save them? It's not easy. So whenever I'd hear these single pilot stories, I go, well, how do you do police work? That's not easy, or it's ineffective. And it was just kind of flying, but it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. But the last point you brought up that I'll end with this is, you said something to the effect of you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You should always be working to improve your product, whatever that looks like. We talk about these incremental, even 1% increase in your ability level. If you can go out each day and just look for that 1% increase in your ability to do the job better, but man, the end product at the end of that time is going to be outstanding. And that's what funds a lot of these programs, is these folks who are wanting to go out and improve, like you said, figuring out a better way to put two pieces of paper together. So just love that idea. And I think it's so important that we really focus on those incremental increases in ability. It doesn't have to be this huge outstanding increase. While it is sometimes like bringing on the M2 or shot over the ARS system into the cockpit, that's a huge that's a huge change in ability level. But I think the most likely scenario is these small little changes that you can make through your abilities and your training and your expertise and experience that really increases your end product. So
I think you think about embracing technology and how technology's changed. It changes all professions over time. It really does. You think just about the phone you have in your pocket. How many, it's changed how cameras, recorders, calculators. That's all built in there. Our computers, how you email and stuff. How that's changed cultures. And if you want to terrify our millennials, start talking about days before internet and telephone.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And we talk about it. I mean, just driving. I think we even talked about it the other day, John, where we said, remember, we got to go from point A to point B. How did we even do that? I mean, without looking it up on your phone. And it was Thomas Brothers Maps or research. We're at AAA and getting maps and routes and all this, and then you go 5 miles and then you turn left, and then it's bizarre where we're at. And in the cockpit, it's even more dramatic. It's just
Yes.
bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm packing right now for a move. I came across my map book yesterday in my garage, and I just held it. My laminated map book that I created in 1997. And
Thanks.
and I'm just looking at it going, this was gold then. I mean, I felt like I could find anything. I could navigate to anything that's in this map book based on my training and experience and taught by some unbelievable trainers. But I thought about the M2 the other day. And I just started laughing. I just started laughing at this laminated book and going, this is silliness. This is, and now you just punch it in and sit back and it's going to take you there. And you're going to know the address. You're going to see the address. You're going to see the street name there on the overlay. You're going to see the who pays the bills at that house. I mean, the amount of information and data is phenomenal. It isn't just about finding the location now. It's seeing it on a screen and being on the zoom in. Oh, it's incredible. It's so cool. And it is cheating.
Yeah. I can remember officers saying, hey, how do you guys call these pursuits so flawlessly at nighttime? You never used to be able to do that. And it's like, well, a lot of training and practice. And
Yes.
No. We've got this technology now that's creating the illusion that we're really sharp.
Yes.
And,
Speaking of your customers, this is important. This is really, I can't wait to hear what you say here. Now you have the MX-15. It's on that that fixed wing, and you are changed. I mean, the way you are working has changed dramatically over a short period of time. What are your customers saying to you guys? Not just CHP either, because you supported hundreds of other agencies. What were the customers? What kind of feedback were they giving you after that change kicked into gear?
Well, I can tell you for us, I mean, I did one more activity in a month than I'd done in the previous 10 years, in that first year of doing that. The first 2 weeks, baby stepping into this. So Sac County Sheriff, big air, program, we worked very closely with them, and the PD both had air support programs. And we would, when they would come up, that would be times when we would take our breaks because they would handle call. We would all support each other and handle calls. And there were times there for maintenance issues or whatever that they kind of had to triage and respond to stuff from the ground. It just happened every once in a while. So that first 2 weeks, we were kind of in that area where the guys were trying to hold down flight hours, but we were talking on our air-to-air frequency, and they'd call us up on their base radio and say, "Hey, we've got a pursuit that just entered this neighborhood," and we would be here and scanning anyway, so we'd already be on it, and we say, "Yeah, go ahead and launch." And then we're going to talk, and we wouldn't talk directly to the agency. We'd talk to the air unit, and we'd feed them information that he's at 123 Maple Street. There's a boat and a truck in the driveway. He's on the number 3 side of the yard underneath the deck there, hiding. You guys got a good perimeter set up, and then they would zoom in and start working the call and everything. And that went on for like a couple of weeks. We were just feeding the information to the Allied air units.
Yeah.
And I remember one night a lieutenant came on. It was this big chase, really bad dude out of a 211. We got on the car during the chase, watched him go over backyards, watched the perimeter being set up. And then, once this guy realized that there's cops all over this neighborhood, he found a really good place to hide inside a garage, access door made into a house. And we talked the air unit on, and they rolled in and directed the arrest team and K9 guys right into that garage and took them into custody. And I remember the lieutenant said, "Hey, Star," it was the sheriff's helicopter, and goes, "Can I ask you guys a question?" He goes, "What's changed?" And they're like, what do you mean, Lieutenant? He goes, "Your batting average is 1,000. I mean, you guys are rolling in and immediately calling out. Did you get some new technology, or what's going on? Because things have obviously changed here." And I remember the pilot at the time, he just said, "We're getting a little help now from the Chippy Predator."
Chippy Predator.
And that name kind of stuck, because here's an airplane up a mile up above us that you can't hear or see.
Yeah.
It's just, helping us out. So that was
cool.
the first impact that, we raised the batting average of our allied agencies, and we always work closely with them, and we wanted if we found something and it's their agency and we want them to talk to their guys and coordinate with it. And they were better at it than we were too, because we were still kind of learning our craft at the time. So,
and your own California Highway Patrol officers, they must have been thrilled.
They were. So, So it got to the point when we would come up, we would get on all the dispatch centers of dozens of agencies in the Valley and just say, Air 21's up. It's the camera bird will be up for the next 3.5 hours. Wow. And you'd hear on the scanner of dispatchers, air support's up, Air 21's up. And they all knew at that time it was an airplane with a big camera. And then we were listening and scanning everybody. And it's we obviously weren't better trained or anything. We had a really good camera system, and we were in a window of opportunity to hear it and get the camera on it and watch it unfold and follow and give direction. And that was the biggest key, is being in that window of opportunity to make a difference.
Well, I can tell you my personal experience of going to the Sacramento area a lot over the past 25 years, that the compliments that I've heard, people coming up at breaks, people at lunch, the compliments that I have heard about your specific Valley Division aviation unit are countless. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I've taught all over that region, and they all have stories about your fixed wing being in the Valley, doing great, great things. And they knew your names. I mean, I was like, you even know these guys by name? They go, of course we do. Well, they helped us so many times. Last year, I bet you I had this many incidents with them where the capture of the bad guy was because they were there, and they film it, and they just would rave about you guys. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to hear your perspective on that, because I know what I thought based on hearing it. That's a game changer. Yeah, that's a game changer for them.
And in the classes I teach here, I'm always saying you always want to, whether you're a business or air unit or whatever, you always want to be creating more value so that you're not replaceable now. And that's what we were doing. And part of, I think, them knowing us on a first name basis is we would do training days with allied agencies. We'd go to their training days and we would grab a CD of all the greatest hits the last month of their chases and dogs and stuff. And that's what they wanted to see. That's how we'd start the class. And it got to a point that they were asking for that every month. Hey, can you burn us stuff we got involved with? Because we just want to use it for learning how to do stuff better, because you always learn when you go after a call and you sit down and how could we have done this better? Learn that from the San Diego guys. They said, sit down and really triage, and on your training days, just go over calls. And that became a part of how our TFOs, and it wasn't to point fingers or anything. It's like we were all realized that man, this is just about getting better at our craft, guys. Yeah. And so,
that to me, John's going to know this phrase. Kevin Gallagher used it, and we use it a lot. I just used it recently in an article. That is when your unit went from a luxury to essential.
Yep.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It was a luxury. You guys were there. You guys were watching. You had binoculars. You became essential to your customer. Talk about that from an internal view. Did all of you feel that? And your responsibility, you felt more responsibility increasing on your role? Did that change the culture inside your unit?
Absolutely. Yeah. We even had a helicopter medics and TFOs switching over to the airplane side because they wanted to be behind us. I've never seen that before, because they had the better job, the cooler job. That's definitely it.
That's telling.
So that happened. And then even our management, our sergeant at the time, our captain, our chief, they were so on board that I remember them saying, we want the best air unit in the state. What do we got to do that? We got to be aggressive and be up there doing this as much as we can.
Yeah. So
it shifted, and it wasn't a big shift, because it's about a 5-to-1 cost factor of flying a turbine helicopter to a piston airplane. So it didn't take a lot away from the budget of the helicopter side, and but we were able to really, dramatically increase the effectiveness of that air unit. And then we even started thinking. I remember how we recruited TFOs. There was a guy, John Pierce, that worked in South Sac.
Legendary.
You know Johnny? Yeah,
Absolutely.
Johnny Pierce.
John Pierce is legendary.
You guys need to have him on the show.
Well, so John, before we get to this, it's funny how this comes up because I've talked to John Pierce multiple times about coming on this show, and he's you don't want to hear, you don't want to hear from me. Well, you and I both know we do want to hear from John Pierce.
Yeah,
he's one of those names that all the customers knew. It's like he's like the Todd Yeager. Todd Yeager doesn't want to come on. Oh, they want to hear me. Oh, yes, they do. So we get friends to bug them. So John Nielson is now going to bug John Pierce for us because John's still in the game. John's still in the game. He's working for Sac County, I believe now, right?
He is. Yeah, he's a TFO.
Yeah, I bumped into him last year in Phoenix, and I bugged him. So, John, that's your mission. If you should decide to accept it, that is your mission.
One of the best I ever work with.
He's incredible.
Yeah,
was a gifted camera guy and a gifted tactician and communicator. You put it all together, and he was the real deal. So that's your mission, John.
That's how he was recruited. So he worked in South Sac, busy area, and you got in pursuits and stuff, and you'd hear him. Some of the pursuit, he was a good driver. He's very skilled behind the wheel guy. So it's like we were impressed with, holy cow, this guy could really drift. He's on him, but he was so calm and collective, just everything. And he was one of these guys. I'm sure he was the typical chippy. That's the scanner chaser. He's just getting involved in stuff. Why is he over on this part of town?
Right.
That Johnny Pierce involved in this call, with the sheriff or the PDs and stuff. He was that kind of guy. He was just and so, one day we just landed at the airport and had a conversation with him about thinking about, hey, would you be interested in maybe applying for the next TFO position? Because he had the personality and he was a natural hunter. And he was a really good cop, and that's a good foundation.
And a communication. You guys heard that under stress. You would hear him and go, this guy can do this job. Right.
Yeah. So when I came back talking to my sergeant and stuff, I said, the next time we have an opening, this is the guy. We got to grab him.
That's great. Oh, that's such a great story. I love that. Now I want him on even more. John Pierce, you are coming on the Hangar Z. I'll come and kidnap him. Funny side note on John. So my daughter and her husband and my two grandsons are at an air show in the Sacramento area last year. And I forget the chain of events, but somehow she sent me a picture of of Colton and Bo, and it's with John Pierce. He was on the static display. And she goes, oh, I just went up and said, hey, can my boys take a picture with you? And he said, sure. And I said, hey, do you know my dad? And John goes, well, who's your dad? And she tells him, he goes, yes, I do, because we've known each other a long time. Like I've known you a long time, John. And that he got a great picture with my grandsons, and she sent that to me. That made my day because I was like, Megan, you don't even know. The boys are standing with a guy that is legendary. He's a really well-known California Highway Patrol officer in the aviation unit. And he's done great things for years. And he just retired, now he's working for Sac County, like you said. But I love that you recruited him.
And
brilliant.
I teaching for APSCON, he said, John, you've got such, thousands and thousands of experience doing this. You got to get out there and share it with folks. So he's doing it.
Good. He's so talented. So
he'll
be coming on. Yeah. We just booked somebody else, John.
Yeah,
we got him.
And that goes to show you the importance of the TFO. Because if you have a weak guy in the back seat, you don't want that workload to go to the front of the aircraft,
right?
And with the TFOs that we had, I think of all the guys were so good at it. They got to be just experts that they called us FODs, flight officer driver.
Yeah,
because you really were. Your job is to take me where I need to go so that I can, take control of this incident.
Yeah.
And you really were.
John, you brought something up that I want to go back to. We talk about the value and need for internal marketing all the time. We're really good about getting this cool equipment and doing a good job. We're not so good about sharing that good job we do with the folks that matter.
Right.
So with my agency, we did a weekly activity report and a monthly activity report. And that report would go to our command staff. Whether they read that report, who knows?
Yeah.
But what you brought up, the monthly video, the highlight video, man, that's gold.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
for all these agencies that have the capabilities, which most do, take the 10 best incidents you're a part of, make a sizzle reel that you could send to your command staff, your patrol units. You talk about the value of recruiting internally. You know, I think any young officer sees that and like, ooh, I want to be a part of all of that.
Yeah.
You know, so that was one of the nuggets that I picked out of a lot of the nuggets we've talked about. But I think that's a really good idea to internally market our own aviation unit. Really good idea.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Traca Systems. With over 25 years delivering groundbreaking searchlights, stabilized EOIR cameras, mission mapping, and downlinking solutions, Traca products improve situational clarity and coordination with ground crews, increasing mission safety and effectiveness. Visit tracasystems.com. See clearly, act decisively.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company. For over 50 years, Robinson has been a cornerstone in vertical lift, dedicated to making helicopter missions accessible, reliable, and safe. By maintaining a vertically integrated manufacturing base in the United States, Robinson delivers practical, high-performance tools for difficult missions. Whether it's the legendary R-22, where so many pilots began their journey, the versatile R-44 and R-66, or now the new 10-seat R-88, Robinson continues to set the standard. Now through Robinson Unmanned, the company is expanding into autonomous and remotely piloted aircraft for civil, commercial, and defense sectors. Robinson Helicopter Company, committed to efficiency, reliability, and supporting your mission, whatever it may be. Visit robinsonheli.com or robinsonunmanned.com to learn more. Climb higher.
We hope you enjoyed these episodes with John Nielsen, retired CHP pilot. It's hard to imagine committing yourself to a vision for 15 years, especially one that challenges the status quo. John's journey to bring FLIR technology into the fixed-wing program with the CHP is a testament to incredible patience, resilience, and unwavering belief in something bigger than himself. It's the kind of dedication that doesn't just improve a program, it transforms an entire culture. His story is truly inspirational. Most people would have walked away long before seeing it through. But John stayed the course, and the results speak for themselves. That same experience and passion for airborne law enforcement continues today as John works with agencies across the country, helping them find smarter, more effective, and more affordable solutions to their air support missions. We hope you found this conversation as motivating as we did. Thanks for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to Vertical Plus. We really appreciate the support. Stay safe, and we will catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.